Okay, that doesn't make the Earth really very old then, does it? If we...
No. There's a lot of indicators that the Earth is not, shall we say, man's existence on the planet has not been nearly as long as some of these folks would like us to believe.
Something short of what, 6,000 years?
That's correct, yes. And then, of course, the flood obliterated all pre-flood geology and rearranged it, so what we're looking at is approximately 4,700 years. And the amount of alluvial soil or erosion that is present on the planet at the ends of rivers where they go into the seas and all of that show that that is a very accurate amount of time, or approximation of the time since the flood.
Okay, we know that 8 people survived on the Ark. How many died? How many were on, how populated was the Earth? You can project the population by the age of the people. You know, it says Adam lived 939 years, and it talks about the other people. They all lived in excess, with maybe one exception, of 900 years. And it says, and they begat sons and daughters. So a projected population would be very close to the 5 billion that we have today. 5 billion.
Yes.
That died, that didn't believe.
Right.
And Noah was the one that did. I noticed on the stones, the anchor stones, there were crosses on there. How did they get on there?
Okay, that is a question I get asked quite a bit, because, of course, most people are aware that the cross was not a popular symbol until after the crucifixion.
No, Noah didn't put them on there.
Noah did not put these crosses on there, and we have found several of these anchor stones that have been buried in the mud flow near the Ark, and they do not have the crosses. These are Byzantine-style crosses and Crusader-style crosses, so they were put on there from the 4th century until about the 11th century. There was a large wall, Susan, that somebody way back in antiquity put through this village that Noah founded after he got off the boat, and his wife told him, "You're going to sleep on the couch until you get me a house away from this boat. I don't want to see this boat ever again." You know, this sort of thing.
Only took him 120 years to drive her crazy with it, I guess.
Right. And then the year on there with all the animals. I imagine that everybody was a little tired of the Ark by that time. But anyway, they built this large clay wall, and they put tile with pictures showing the story of the flood on there, and remnants of that are still out there today. And so when these early Christians arrived, that was there for them to see, and they were convinced that these were relics from Noah's Ark, so they put this iconographic set of crosses on there representing 8 people and the importance of the people in relation to each other. Right. And so we have that today, showing that those folks were convinced.
Okay. Hold that thought. We are going to be back. It's the hour of 8 o'clock, and this is a special morning edition. If you've just joined us, it's going to be 2 hours long instead of a regular hour. And my guest today is a man who has discovered what now is believed even by the Turkish government over in near Mount Ararat is the Ark. And we have a little model here of it that Ron Wyatt brought. He has been called the Indiana Jones of modern day. And what do you think about that, Ron?
Well, we have had some adventures. Some of them have been rather dangerous and spooky, but I don't really think about myself at all. I'm, shall we say, just thrilled to death to be working with these things. And it, you know, I've been called some other things too that were a bit less flattering by some folks. When it comes to Noah's Ark, there was some stories went around, you know, about folks seeing it. As a matter of fact, a fellow was starting up a magazine out in Los Angeles, and he made up the whole story of this Russian pilot that saw the boat and the regiment of engineers from the czars, Russia, that went out and investigated it and all of that. He made this up, you know, just it was a novel, strictly, and we all, our countries have letters from him apologizing for that fact. But these things stick in people's minds, and so when people see this, they say, well, that's not barred shape, so that can't be Noah's Ark. But anyway, we have had some adventures, and so I guess along those lines, I would prefer being called Tennessee Wyatt rather than Indiana Jones.
Tennessee Wyatt, okay, Tennessee
yeah,
Wyatt.
whatever.
Okay, he was, Ron was on the cover of Nashville Magazine several months ago, and it says, "In Search of Noah's Ark." It looks like something out of the Ark of the, what is it, Raiders of the Lost Ark movie, and also his book, Discovered Noah's Ark, has kind of that feel to it. Your publishers tend to think that that's kind of who you are, and well, I don't know. I think you've had some wonderful experiences, and I want to talk about the one that I remember.
Okay.
When I met you 8 years ago, we sat and talked about the Ark of the Covenant. Are you a prophet, Ron? Do you think of yourself as a prophet?
Well, my wife would say, she makes a little joke about this. She says, I've been strictly non-prophet ever since she's known me.
You've been married about 4 years.
Right, about the financial strain of doing this research. Okay. Seriously, anybody, say for example, the weatherman on television, back when they were talking from the viewpoint of calling these people prophets, they would be a weather prophet. So anybody that makes any comments about a future event, by definition, is a prophet. So that would cover everybody. You know, like some ladies say, if you don't do this, that, and the other, I'm going to do such and such. Well, she's a prophetess.
She's predicting the future.
Right, and whether she actually does it or not tells you whether she was a false prophetess or accurate. And so we do deal with things that will have a tremendous impact on the future. And we do have a close relationship with God, because these things are objects that He has preserved from each time He intervened into the, shall we say, human history in a supernatural manner. You remember He destroyed the earth with the flood because the human race had gotten so wicked that I suppose they were on the verge of self-destruct. And then later, Sodom and Gomorrah, they got to be such sinful individuals that He burned the city. And so we have been able to find and document that. And then, of course, the Red Sea crossing, the storage silos for the grain that Joseph collected over the 7 years of plenty. We're currently working on that.
How do you find time to do all these finds? I mean, how often do you get out to these sites?
I've been to the Middle East over 40 times. Doesn't speak very highly of my efficiency. But anyway, we work on this. We sit down, we pray about this, and I try to put myself in the place of the person that's watching the results of our work. And again, I am a very critical individual. And so we try to document it from that point of view, so that the person seeing it has every reason to know that these things are facts, or they're real objects. Now, I think in archaeology, one of my professors told me, and the whole class, he says, you do not excavate a site just to see what's there. You decide ahead of time what you want to be there, and you make it happen. Well, that's not science.
Cheating? That sounds right to me.
Is pathetic, because, you know, the whole object, I would think, of scientific investigation is to find out how things work or what was there. But this is what they tell you. And so, anyway, we try to give folks all of the evidence, and I feel that after all the risk and expense and time that I have invested in this, that gives me the right to give my opinion of what I think the significance of all of this is, but I feel obliged to provide all of the raw data so that other people can review it and think about it, pray about it, and say, well,
decide for themselves,
exactly,
what they believe. Now, this Ark of the Covenant, that is the major find, I believe, in
That's
all
right.
the Bible. That is God's mercy seat. That is
Right.
that is God's Ark.
Right.
And you believe you found it.
I do,
and I know
yes.
you can't go very far with this conversation because you've been asked not to by Israel and
the people I work with in Israel. The Middle East has been a very volatile area. It doesn't take a lot to get folks killed over there. And so in order to continue my work, I have been asked not to discuss any more than we have already shared until we're finished. Now, at such a time as when we have this finished, then we'll be able to show video of all of the objects from Solomon's temple that are not listed in 2 Kings, the 25th chapter, and Ezra, the first 2 chapters.
Okay.
And also there's some dedicated things. I imagine there's a lot of folks in your audience that would like to see Goliath's sword, for example. Well,
you
that
got
was
that.
That was one of the dedicated objects, and it didn't get carried off to Babylon. And so anyway, there will be, hopefully by this time next year, people can see all of this for themselves, and they can go, if they have the time and money to do so, and take a look at the tables of stone that God wrote the 10 Commandments on themselves.
Now, that
it
was
will be
in
on
the Ark.
public display. That's correct. Yes.
Bless your heart. Now, I wanted, when we met, you told me about taking a little Arab guide into a place that evidently the Lord pointed out to you, because you don't really feel like you're just a whole lot smarter than everybody else. I know that from you, Ron, and I know that you feel that the Lord's just letting you kind of notice stuff.
Yes.
And
if I were smart, I'd be rich.
okay.
I am just thrilled out of my skull to be working on these things, and I get asked quite often, why I think God gave me this privilege, and the Bible states very simply that God uses the simple things. And but I can certainly live with the idea of being a simple person to get to do this. It's an honor and a privilege, and so I don't. Once again, I don't even think of myself. I think of all this stuff. Why should I think of Ron Wyatt? I'm just a average individual, and there's nothing special. The only thing special about me is that Christ died for me, and He did that for everybody.
But you believe that now it would have been pretty wonderful. I mean, it would be great if 8 different people found 8 great finds, God's
Right.
finds. But why did you get picked? And you really believe you are chosen to have found these 8 finds. Why would God choose one man to find them?
Well, He says there in the verse for the day, He says, "This once I will show them that my name is the Lord." Now, down through history, there's been Lord Baal, Lord Vishnu, Lord Buddha, and so on and so on. So God says, "This once I will show them that my name is the Lord." And all of these things that He has preserved and kept hidden away until a point in history when we have satellite relays for our television broadcasts and the ability to translate into everybody's language.
And excavate and
Right.
X-ray and
All of these
fluoroscope
things